everyone. Thank you so much for finding yourself here in this exploration of the gift of silence and empowering women leaders in times of change. And so I think that if we were all to reflect for a moment on what the last few years has held for us, I suspect that many of us would really connect into the notion of change and uncertainty and what that has really meant for us as we've sat in not knowing what to expect, not knowing what's happening in the world around us, and feeling those heightened levels of emotion as we move through that uncertainty and change. And so what I wanted to explore together today for about half an hour or so is how our current uncertainty and change in our environments, as well as how it really is lived within ourselves, how do we start to embrace that as a gift and rather than it being felt as a threat? And the reason why silence really comes into this story for me is because over the course of my unfolding life to date, silence has really held many inner revelations for me. It started off as being a very uncomfortable and really felt like I was inadequate and a very threatening position for me to be in silence. However, it has shifted into it feeling like a place of deep connection and being able to really tap into intuitive insight and being able to expand beyond the current potential. So it's moved really from being constrictive and restrictive to expansive. And so I wanted to explore that a little bit together today and how it might be that we can be more empowered in our leadership as women during times of uncertainty and change. And so here I am when I was about 6 years old, I think, at my birthday party, having a great time, playing past the parcel, and you see that my beautiful best friend, who's still in my life today, is sitting next to me there. We play follow the leader, we're having a great time, really doing the headbanging thing before maybe I was even remotely conscious of that. And even walking and pretending to be elephants. And there's my little sister there. And that was a profoundly ironic moment when I was asked by Mum to download some of these old family videos onto a shared drive so that we could all access them. And as I was doing that, I noticed this particular part, which was of this birthday party. And it was just really ironic that we were pretending to be elephants because the elephant, metaphorically speaking, represents to me the elephant in the meeting room or the elephant in the room. And that is about the unspokens, and that's about the silence, But it was about the silence back then at this very birthday party that I first noticed my own elephant moment. What happened for me in this birthday party, which really was such a great time, you can see on this beautiful video, until at the very end of it, I soiled my pants and I felt deeply ashamed of myself. I didn't say a word to anyone, including my mum. And I waited until everybody left. Until then, I went to the bathroom to try and clean myself. And it was the first elephant moment for me in that I went silent I didn't say anything because I was so deeply ashamed of what had happened. And it's really the beginning of a curious exploration of silence. And as life has it, I do believe that our life experiences are like the perfect learning curriculum for what it is that we're here to do and share and contribute to in the world. And so the thread of silence has really carried through my journey in many different ways. And this is a moment that I was really deep in the throes of the pain that not being able to speak up held for me. During this postgraduate course experience, which was when I was 27, it was a course that was around, it was called Innovation and Service Management. So it's all about change, all about organisational dynamics, systems thinking, group dynamics, and it was all about being innovative, right? So, and to be innovative, we need to be able to tap into new thought. We need to be able to sit in the unknown, because we can't have an innovative concept or thought from the familiar environment, right? So what we already know will result in the same thing as what we've always seen. But if we want something new to come, then we need to be able to sit in the discomfort of the unfamiliar. You know that saying, growth happens outside of your comfort zone. And so I didn't know at the time, but the design of the program was masterfully done, where they removed all of our known structures. So I had, turned up to the first day of the residential, the 1 week residential for our first module, and nothing was familiar. We didn't have any assessments given to us. We didn't have a reading list. We sat around in a circle. There were no desks. The lecturers sat there next to us. We started the day with anywhere from 20 minutes, 30 minutes of silence. And occasionally someone would speak up and share something, but what was shared was seemingly very random. There was no, here's what we're going to be discussing right now. This is the topic. Does anyone have anything to share? It was literally sitting there in silence until someone said, I had a dream last night, or something came up for me after our session yesterday. And I sat there completely out of my comfort, in that I did not have any idea what I was meant to say or do. And I realised that over the course of the 2 years, when I sat there mostly in silence because I didn't know what to say or how to be, that I had become so attached and defined by my identity with the role that I associated with. So I identified as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend, as a project director, all these things. That's how I identified myself. And when I was in those settings, I knew what I needed to be. I knew how to be. But when I was in this setting, and I didn't, the role of student was not anything like what this experience was for me. I totally didn't know how to show up. And that really, in many ways, broke me on the inside, because I was an emotional basket case on the inside. All I could feel was this sense of I didn't know what was expected. The environment and all the interactions were, what was what the environment was filled with was totally new to me. So it was uncertain, right? It wasn't predictable. I didn't know what to expect. And it was a big change from what I had been from, in terms of all of these very familiar roles. I knew who I was, into this space where I had no idea. So I had change and uncertainty sitting with me front and center. And the way that my experience of it played out was that I sat there in silence a lot of the time, because much like the elephant in the meeting room, I didn't know what to say, how to be. And I really sat with my own elephant on my lap, suffocating me really for 2 years. But it gave me such a beautiful insight into, and really the catalyst for wanting to explore what this actually is about. And so it has become the catalyst for my life's work, which is all about supporting purpose-led leaders and their teams in times of change. So change and uncertainty. I call it really connecting to the heart of the matter, because often in our workplace environments, we look at the doing. We look at the agendas, we look at the task lists, we look at the policies and the procedures and the budget and the planning and all of these the processes and the systems, all the things above, what I call above the surface, in the doing. But often what's sitting below the surface are all the elements of what it means to be there as a human being. We start to look at the stories that we have, the patterns that have developed, the emotional connection that we've had to different things and what they mean to us, that deeper meaning that sits underneath the surface activity. And ultimately, whether we're really coming from a place of fear or love. And so this has definitely, these 2 years in particular, but then carried through many, many other experiences in my personal and professional life, where I've really explored what the silence represents and how to find my authentic voice and how to be empowered in self-leadership in various contexts, and how to really step into a place of knowing and connecting more deeply to myself, irrespective of what is going on the outside, has really become my life's work. And it's been such a blessing to work with many teams and individuals in their exploration of how to connect to empowered expression for themselves and with each other, and to really how to be more empowered within themselves so that they can co-create the work days that really are, best supportive of and enabling of their unique gifts, so that they can share it with the people around them, as well as, really ultimately being able to achieve more together, which is the achievement of not just our organisational and team aspirations and goals, but also achieve more fulfillment and really be able to experience this gift that we have called life in a way that is honoured in every moment of our day, whether we're at work or we're, outside of work. And so, in summary, some of the, how I saw my experience in those 2 years, but down the track, when I had the beauty of hindsight and I'm starting to piece together this story, how the gift of silence was really sitting there with me. But in the time of the turmoil, how I really felt at that time was alone. And I felt unfocused. I felt unconfident, and I felt unable to act. That's typical amygdala response to a threat. You know, and they say it's fight, flight, freeze, or please. I went into freeze, and I just was unable to speak up. And so I retreated into my silence. But in the retreating in the silence, it wasn't an empowered retreat. It was a chaotic, emotional, I felt so self-critical. I really said some terrible things to myself inside of my head. Like, you're the dumbest person in the room. Why can't you speak up? You know, through to feeling really frustrated and ultimately feeling stuck and alone. And so what I really feel is that a lot of this is so critically important in the environment that we find ourselves in today. You know, many of us are navigating change and uncertainty, whether that be in our personal lives or whether that be in our professional lives. And while statistics shift and change as the context shifts, at the moment the data is showing that leaders face unprecedented levels of change. You know, 74% of workers report feeling overwhelmed by workplace change. 60% of leaders feel constant pressure to adapt without support. And change fatigue and uncertainty lead to burnout and disengagement. And so this is a systemic issue. If we are feeling it, which quite understandably that literally would be that would be a very common thing. If we are feeling it as leaders, or we are noticing it in our teams, or we're noticing it in our family and communities, then it's not unusual. This period, particularly off the back of the pandemic, with AI acceleration, with the technological advances, really exponentially kind of being experienced by many of us, not knowing where it's leading, that constant state of, you know, uncertainty and change is literally here with us a lot of the time. And this context is very different to business as usual. And so if we are leading in organisations and we're noticing that those around us are, you know, maybe not as able to collaborate, communicate, to be able to deliver in the ways that perhaps they might have been able to in the past when things were more predictable, then that is totally humanly understandable because of the different elements that exist when we are in unpredictable environments, the different feelings and the different stories that conjure up in our own minds and in relationship with those around us are very different. And so over time, I've had the blessing of working with many women in leadership roles. And when I look at leadership, I'm not necessarily correlating that with an organisational structure or a position title. I'm looking at women that step into leadership, self-leadership in their environments, whether it be in their family, whether it be in their community, whether it be in their workplace. And so to me, self-leadership is accessible to any one of us, irrespective of what we may have, you know, what we may have on our position description at work. And it gives us all the opportunity to be able to step into a place of impact and influence. But the silent struggles of the women I've been blessed to serve, including myself, you know, at times, has definitely sort of drawn my attention to these core themes. One is that even like really over the last few years, I've noticed that this has really compounded. is that there's a feeling of misalignment with personal values in the corporate environment. This is when we might feel like we've been asked to do something that we don't agree with, or we're watching the system around us do something that we don't agree with. And so, and you know, I'm sure there are many other possible scenarios that could come up, but the foundation of it really comes down to that something is going on that we can feel is not aligned to us. Loneliness is a very common feeling when we feel like we are the only ones, right? We feel like we're the only ones that our values are not feeling aligned. We're the only ones that are feeling like we are struggling with certain, changes that are happening, or the way in which we're being asked to step into uncertainty. The pressure of juggling multiple roles and constant expectations. And this is a very common one, in that many women take up caretaker roles for many different aspects of their life. Professional expectations that go along with their role and the responsibilities associated with that, as well as often caring for family members, whether it's children, spouse, parents, grandparents. There is a whole spectrum there of caring duties that are juggled in amongst really showing up in their professional roles to the best of their ability. And often the weight of their high personal expectations as a high achiever weighs heavily within them, often feeling like they're not doing, anything really well enough, spreading themselves very thin. And so when we consider that our workplace environments are uncertain and constantly changing, and that this has been building over some time, and that many things are unpredictable, and that often we don't know in that unpredictability what is expected of us. And so this ties back to the experience and the learning that I had back in that postgraduate course experience, where when that was my experience of the environment, that brought up in me this defensive kind of protective behavior in myself, which was to shut down, to go silent, because I didn't know. I didn't feel safe enough within myself. And so my automatic reaction was to do that. And so often this happens in our workplace environments, in our meetings, right? In our interactions with others, is that when we don't quite know what to expect, and we don't quite know what others are expecting of us, maybe there are some details and information is unclear. Sometimes the scope of work, if you like, in uncertain environments is constantly changing, and so you really can't quite grab at it. So that can leave us feeling very vulnerable and uncertain in ourselves. These moments lend themselves to the elephant turning up in our meeting rooms more often, right? So what I have observed in my experience with teams and individuals over the last 20-ish years is that in times of change and uncertainty, often we will construct a story in our own heads. So picture yourself sitting in a meeting room and you're observing what's going on, and you come up with a story instantly, usually. Now, say that that story, then you have a feeling associated with it, right? So sometimes that could be, you're feeling really great. Sometimes it might be, you're not really feeling that good. But let's just look at the experience when the elephant in the meeting room tends to present. Usually something has happened where we feel like, something about that doesn't quite feel right. And then because we've had that moment, then usually there is a silence. And that silence can be something that is, it's longer than what a normal sort of passing silence is. And there was a Dutch study that was done where they showed that as little as 4 seconds of silence can increase the feeling of rejection that we feel in a social group. It can make us feel like these negative emotions can really bubble up to the surface very quickly for us as individuals when we feel like there's as little as 4 seconds of silence after something that we're sitting there going, ooh, I don't know if that's okay. And so usually that silence, which is the elephant in the meeting room, you know, that moment when people are looking around at each other or they're looking down because they don't want to make eye contact, there's a sensory experience within the group. That is when we all have a feeling going on, like, oh, something's not quite right. It's not safe enough to speak up right now. Oh, why aren't they saying that? You know, so there's a sensory experience going on. And then we spiral. So we spiral off into our worst possible imagination because we don't have much information to go on. Not a lot of information was shared in terms of spoken. And usually what happens in times of uncertainty and change in our work environment, like team meetings or in times when we're in relationship with someone else and we're exploring something and an experience like this comes about, is that we will continue to circle in that loop. Because to break the loop means that we need to actually step into a place of exploration with each other. And we need to be able to do so in a way that is open and is curious and is safe enough for people to feel like they can really step into that exploration together. And so the way that I see it is that we can choose to seize and harness the gift of silence as an empowered leader during times of change, when we have gone through the experience of, noticing that something isn't quite right. We can feel it. So we've got the story going on a little bit. We've got the feeling going on through the sensory of our individual experience, the feelings that are already sitting there with us. And then we can choose to really embrace our humanness, right? And we become heartful. So we pay attention, we become aware. We develop ways of being empowered in that experience together. We reflect together. We become reflective inquirers together to really explore what is showing up right now. This is very interesting and important human dynamic data. It provides us with a lot of insight, actually, to how we do our best work together if we don't ignore it and if we really invite the elephant to the table and just explore with it with curiosity and compassion. And then we can talk and walk the talk together. That's where new outcomes can emerge, and that is where the gift of silence really sits. And that is liberating, not just for the team that is sitting in the room with us, but it's also liberating for ourselves as the leaders in that space. And so how do we do that? How do we shift? How do we break that cycle? How do we stop repeating the same loop? I often look at it like a merry-go-round or one of those whizzy dizzies. I'm not sure if you haven't been to a playground here in Australia I don't know when they were taken out. I think that it was probably some sort of public liability issue. But there used to be these like whizzy dizzies that you would spin around on. Someone would run around the outside and pushing the pole until you just let go, and then you could stay on there. But if you just stayed on there for too long, you literally you either started to feel sick, or when you got off, you couldn't find your feet. And so how do we get off that? And so that is where this model of new comes into it. And what we do is that we become aware of, and we become conscious practitioners of intentional practices that enable us to notice, to embrace, and to really nurture our own well-being and the well-being of others. And so notice is about that change is only possible when the obstacle is identified. So if we don't choose to look and explore together, we will inevitably repeat the same patterns. And so it's only possible through awareness, and shared awareness, and curiosity, and inquiry together. Embrace is within the obstacle is massive potential growth. And so this is where, in the gift of the elephant, there was so much unbelievable growth that I've experienced right across my life so far. And so what might feel to be the obstacle and is a threat is actually also holds the most amazing gifts and insight and potential for us to uncover together. And then well-being is really about performance enhancers when individuals are self-empowered. And so this really comes from within each of us ourselves. It's based around the idea of, that we can be intentional about what we create and what we co-create in our workplace environments, and that we can expect more for ourselves, that we can expect a really fulfilling day where we can contribute our unique talents and gifts with each other, and we can achieve more together from performance and well-being. And so let's share a notice practice together right now. This is a Mojo moment, which is a short audio clip, and it's really about paying attention to really connecting and centering in within ourselves. And it's from a program that I have. It's an online program called The Perfect Workday, which is 21 days of very short Mojo moments that you can bring in to really set the tone of your day off to an intentional start. So when you where you are, just get comfy wherever you are, and I will press play. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Mojo Moment. So a key to being able to choose differently, to create new experiences in our workday that are more fulfilling, where we're able to learn and grow more through experiences that present themselves to us, is to be able to consciously create a moment of pause and to really connect into exploring what might be coming up for us. Without the moment of pause, we get hijacked into the same merry-go-round experience, spinning us around and around and around. And so the moment of pause is really important for us to be able to momentarily break that cycle and to be able to explore our experiences in a new way, which enables new potential and opportunity to come through. So this exercise that we're about to share now is a way in which we can consciously pause and explore what may be coming up for us in our feeling experience. So I invite you to take a seat comfortably, and when you are ready, gently close your eyes. And we're going to take 5 slow, conscious breaths. And now allow the breath to flow naturally and mindfully. And bring your attention to connecting to the sensations in your feet. Really feel the ground underneath your feet, that connection to the earth. And now take your attention to your hands and feel the sensations in your hands. The subtle sense of aliveness or energy flowing through your hands right now. And then connect into the feeling in your body. Start with paying attention to your throat. What can you feel there? What sensations are sitting in your throat? And now move your attention to your chest. What sensations can you feel in your chest now? And now connect into your belly with love and care for yourself. What can you feel arising in your belly? Sit with an open awareness. Observe without judgment. What feelings are present in your body right now? Thank the feelings for showing up, for being there with you in this moment. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Thank you for spending this time with me, and may you have a magical workday every day. Thank you so much for spending that time with me. And so just a couple of stories really honouring these beautiful women that have stepped on this path of self-empowered transformation. Judith O'Callaghan, which is a beautiful, inspiring leader who has also become a really dear friend. And she and I have worked together for a year and over the past couple of years, really. And she has shared really her own experience of coming into deeper connection with her authentic self, what truly makes her me, as she says in her words there. And I've seen her really flourish in terms of the beautiful contributions she makes in our world. She's started Ancient Wisdom Forums. She has co-founded the Global ERP Advisory, and she appears on many podcasts across the world. She's a thought leader in the ERP space, in the digital transformation space, and really connecting into, ancient wisdom and the importance of being aligned with our values. And so it's been a privilege to work with Judith, and she really is a beautiful example of what's possible when we spend the time to really hone and develop our own practices in this space of finding our self-expression and really connecting more deeply to ourselves as female women leaders. And then there's beautiful Marla. Marla was, she came to me at a time in her life when there was a lot converging, and she was an example of how many different expectations were really weighing on her. Being a carer for 2 aging parents, plus with expectations at work as a change coordinator and lots going on in that space, and really trying to connect more deeply to what really mattered to her when she had been defined as a mother for many years and has become a grandmother since. A beautiful granddaughter. And so Marla really shared this beautiful exploration of how to find practices that could help her from spinning out of control, which she talks about as unraveling. So she used to feel like she would unravel to a point where she wouldn't be able to regain her sense of balance. But while in the time that we have worked together, she's been able to come up with some meaningful practices that have really been able to bring her back into that state of inner calm. And so what I wanted to really reiterate, and I'm so grateful that you've spent this time with me, your precious moments, I'm really honoured, is that I want you to know that you are not alone, and that there is such power that I've felt in my time when different people in my path have shared with me and gifted me the knowledge, the embodied feeling that I've known that I am not the only one. And so if you are curious about exploring this more, to be in your self-empowerment, I invite you to explore some of the offerings that I have. If they are of service to you, then I am so thrilled to be able to be part of your path. If they don't quite fit for you, then that is all good too, and I wish you all the very best in your own journey to self-empowerment, and I wish you a magical workday every day.